Hello, and welcome to the Porcelain Dawn channel. Today I'm going to be doing the spoiler discussion for Gardens of the Moon. Hello! As I said, this is a spoiler discussion, so tune out now if you haven't read Gardens of the Moon, the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series by Steven Erikson. So much to get into. This book is so dense and long and rich. If you've seen my review, I loved it, but I'm glad I can do a spoiler review because there's certain things that I want to talk about specifically without ruining any for anyone who hasn't read it yet. So firstly, I want to talk about the original Siege of Pale. When there's Rake and Amanda Rake in his Moon's Born in the Sky shooting beams, and then there's a cadre of Malazan army mages shooting magic up, and there's just explosions everywhere. It seems so frenetic, and it's so grandiose, you know. It was really striking at first how great it was, and then you see all these people getting killed around Tattersail. You see the mage Hairlock getting killed, and then you see he gets turned into a puppet later, which is like genius, but sort of a bit crazy. And this is where you really get a feel for you really get a feel for the book in terms of the tone. You know, it's very dark, very detailed, and unsurprising. Sorry, opposite of that. Surprising, very surprising. A lot of the decisions come out of left field. It's hard. Like, I read a lot of fantasy, but seeing these things coming, you don't really like. You can see some of the beats, but it's there's a lot of unexpected surprises. Sorry, I need some coffee. Yeah, and that just really set the tone. Even though there's some parts before that, like the part in Itko Khan where you see Shadow Throne and Cotillion. Those two, I love. I love their relationship. I love the way that they interact with each other and the world. I mean, Shadow Throne is he's so silly in a sense, if you can say that about a very powerful god. But he's so silly, and he acts so eccentric and silly. It seems like it's a choice for him to act so silly whilst trying to conquer the world, or not conquer the world, but you feel like he's trying to accumulate power, but also won't let this goal get in the way of him being, you know, enigmatic and mysterious, sort of. And I don't know. I think he's really, really funny. Cotillion has more of a. He still has. He's has a bit more humanity. He seems a bit more down to earth, which sort of balances out Shadow Throne a little bit more. Those two are great. Anyway, you see them at the very start. You see them decimate. Well, you don't see it; it happens off screen. But you see their power level in that they call some dogs who immediately destroy a whole regiment or platoon. My military nomenclature isn't great, but quite a lot of soldiers almost instantly. But those two are great, and then yet, like, you go to the Siege of Pale, and you meet the bridge burners, who are kind of the heroes of this book. Even though this is an ensemble cast, there is a lot going on, and I say the bridge burners are the heroes in that they're the principal protagonists, but that's not because the other characters are B players. It's just the main story centers around their mission, but like there's a lot of other characters that are well done and have decent stories in it too. But yeah, you meet the bridge burners. What few there are left, because I think 1,300 might be 3000 or 1300 anyway, died in a cave in. They in siege. They were digging tunnels, and there was the tunnel collapse, and the majority of them died. I think there was 30 or 50 or something. Not many left. And we meet Whiskey Jack and Quick Ben and Callum and Fiddler and Hedge, Trots too, and none of them are that original. Hear me out before you chop my head off. But sort of, Whiskey Jack is the stoic, noble commander who's just trying to do the best for his people. Callum is the silent, brooding death dealer. Quick Ben is the magician, and also the genius. So when there's a problem, he deals with it. Sometimes out of left field, but he deals with it. Fiddler is sort of the totem in that he keeps them more or less together in terms of morale. Hedge is the useful idiot, without disrespecting Hedge, because I really liked him, but he's the butt of a lot of jokes. He's kind of clumsy. He gets what he needs to done, but that's how he's portrayed. So all of these characters are sort of tropes that have been done to the nth degree. As I said many times, I have no problems with tropes if they're well done. Here they are well done. It's not just that the characters have a believability and a depth and a grit to them. It's actually what makes them stand out is the way they interact with each other. The way they interact with each other is what makes them pop off the page, and what makes the bridge burners instantly jump into your heart. They have all this charm. Is that the way in which they interact with each other throughout the whole book? It just gives them a vivacity, a sort of life and charisma that really, really gets you from the jump. So that's really well done, and I really, really enjoyed that. I really look forward to seeing more from the bridge burners. Yeah, so you see that, and then you don't really see much of Anamanda Rake. You just sort of see his explosive power level, which is scary. And then I'm not going to go through the story beat for beat; it's too long. But then you more or less get to the Malazan Empire moves from Pale to Darujistan, and they want to go in undercover. So of course they send the bridge burners, and the bridge burners' idea is to blow up parts of the city to create chaos. Because they have sappers, and sappers are sort of the equivalent of engineers. But their engineers just seem to enjoy blowing stuff up, which is completely fine, It's what they like, unsurprising. But then Darujistan is such a beautiful setting, in terms of the depth. Like Erikson, you can tell he understands you can tell he understands history. You can tell he understands civilizations and things like that. How there's no new civilizations. There's just amalgamations and absorptions of other and evolutions of other civilizations. So everything's sort of built on top of each other or chained from one to the other. So there's no sort of clean civilization in the sense that it's sort of an immaculate conception. Or everything sort of bleeds into one another, and that's what gives his writing, his world building, a life. Is that there is this connection. Nothing is isolated. Nothing is sort of by itself, which often happens in fantasy. Is that people will write a civilization or a city or an army or a history or whatever, and they can even go really far back, but that's it. It's this civilization, and it's this civilization, and it's this civilization. Whereas I feel like even in this first book, everything is so intertwined and messy that it's hard to follow, but it's also realistic, because reality is hard to follow. So that I really appreciate. Darujistan was a great city, great writing with great characters. Ralik Nom, the thief, was excellent, really enjoyable. The Baruch the mage was really enjoyable too, and his pet flying demon monkey, I think. And Krupp, I'm not sure about Krupp. I mean, he's a good character. I found him annoying. But not in the sense that I want him out of the book. I think he adds to the book. I just mean personality-wise, I found his character annoying, but not that he deterred me from reading. I think he was a good introduction. Cole, but he wasn't that in it that much. He was just kind of a drunk. And then they get there and they try to cause havoc, and then you find the bridge minister get there and they try to cause havoc, and then you get this amazing set piece of the mage battle between the city mages, a few bridge burners, and these what we find out to be Tist Andi, which are Anamander Rake's race, his people, who sort of float down and get involved in a magical assassin war, and it's so cinematic. It's really so cinematic. It just gets you, you know. You just follow it, and you're just sort of. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it is like for me, it was sort of an experience where as soon as I hit the first steps of this, I sort of was so absorbed by it that I read all the way until the end, and then it wasn't until a couple of pages after it finished I was like, oof, ooh, wow, that was something. And then I had to go back and read it again, but really sort of, instead of just going along for the ride, really studying it. But it was a really epic set piece. But this book is so full of huge set pieces and huge moments that whilst this was excellent and well written, it was almost a throwaway because it doesn't. You could take it out, and whilst the book would be much less rich, it wouldn't fundamentally accept the story. Wouldn't fundamentally impact the story. Sorry, and I don't mean that in that it's superfluous. No, it really adds to the depth, and that you get to know the characters. It's just in terms of the actual story, it's just a bonus. So yeah, that was great, and then there's a bit more sort of political jockeying, sorry, between that and the end of the book, and you see a bit more of Andamander Rake, and I love the fact that he's not. There's not really exposition on him. There's a little bit of somebody talking about him, or two characters talking about him, but I think his aura of mystery really, really helps him as a character, because when you get to these power levels, so very, very strong, you can't really, if you jot it down and you describe it, it's really sort of doing it injustice. If you just sort of leave it vague and in the ether, like he commands a floating castle, he's the son of darkness, that's his title, and he might be literal also, he's the son of darkness, something like that, and he has a sword that eats souls or something like that. It's not that I didn't follow it, but there was a lot to follow, and there's not much given away in the first book. I did my best. So, but when they keep these vague hints and the way people react to him without actually seeing him do that much, really keeps this aura of just threat, but mystery, enigma, charm too. He's not just a cannon or a hammer. He's polite. His interactions with Baruch are very sweet, almost wistful, you could say, but very, very agreeable to read and to see the humanity of this character, which in no way detracts from his strength. You can feel how restrained he is in these interactions. I really, really appreciated that. And then you get to a duel right at the end between Relic Nom and a councilman who he hates, who's been trying to deal the Rujistan to the malazans. And you think it's going to be, this councilman is meant to be a good duelist, so you think it's going to be sort of tense, like a lot of duels, you're like, da, 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 and then this guy will win. the good guy will win, but it's over in like one line or something. Just the assassin is so good that even in the official duel, it's ended. And then things go awry, obviously. Things go awry as they often do at the around surroundings of the duel. And then you have a giant demon roaming around the city, destroying things, and you have Rake. Rake takes it on, and it's epic. It's really epic. I'm sorry if I'm overusing that word, but that's the best word to use to adequately describe or adequately convey the sense you get in this book. Yeah, so this fight scene at the end was great. It was momentous. There were better fight scenes earlier in the book. Not to say that the book finished on a low, like the whole book was excellent, but this one wasn't particularly. I mean, it was great, but it wasn't the best. The best was the mage fight, which I already described, which was really good. Anyway, this book, I loved it. There are some weak points. Weak points. Some parts of the prose, the world building and the characters had to do a lot of heavy lifting to get you through because it was clunky. And I don't mean that in the sense that it was difficult to read. It just had a little difficulty to it because it didn't flow so well. I'm thankful that there was no exposition dumps, which did make it flow a little better. But there were parts where it was just the text wasn't optimized to aid the reading, so you did get bogged down. The pacing did grind down a little bit at certain points, just because the way in which the paragraphs were constructed. Not a huge drawback. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't unreadable, but it was noticeable in a few parts. But when you have such a deep creation, such a rich world, such a deep story, and it's your first book, 100% forgiven. 100% forgiven. I've read many books with much less rich prose, with much worse pacing. So, slight criticism, in no way a deal breaker. Still a superb book. Also, you don't get spoon fed. You don't get told about things. You don't get told about how really the magic system works. You don't get told much about certain characters' backstories or certain cultures' backstories or things like that. You don't know everything. You just get drip fed, as is natural. You don't have these expeditions on two characters who've known each other forever and lived in the world forever explaining how the world works. Things like that don't make sense if you think about it, don't happen in this book. You just get sort of slight bits and pieces here and there and sort of building up a 3D idea of what's going on through how the characters talk and through how they interact with each other and what you see through the eyes of these characters. So it does leave you not lost, but somewhat in the dark for certain parts of the book. Obviously, you do learn more as you go along, and I expect to learn more in the rest of the books, but it is something that people will have to get used to. If people get frustrated with not knowing anything, or if people get frustrated with vagueness, this book isn't for them. But if you can get past that, this book, I would 100% recommend it. The world building is unbelievable, and the dynamics between the characters, also 10 out of 10. I really look forward to reading the next one. I'm reviewing it on this channel. Normal review and spoiler review, of course. So thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, like and subscribe. If you have any book recommendations for me, please comment down below. Otherwise, take care. Bye-bye.